Why is it that we can spend hours and hours thinking about something and still feel like we haven't achieved anything? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how overthinking is disrupting your productivity, what's happening in your brain when you get stuck in this, and what to do instead. Plus, I'm going to give you one question that helps your brain break that loop so that you can stop overthinking and start making progress with actually doing again. So, let's talk about why overthinking feels productive, but it's not. So, what's happening is we often confuse thinking about the work with actually doing the work. It's not the same thing. So, you might find yourself replaying a conversation over and over, planning what you're going to say next. You might be second guessing your next move. Maybe even just tweaking things constantly, and you're checking over and over if you're getting it right. So, what's happening when we're doing this is that your brain is busy, so it feels like effort. And when something feels like effort, we assume that we're making progress, right? But actually, it's this kind of mental looping, if to call it something. It's this kind of mental looping that burns energy, but it doesn't create any outcome. So we're spending hours in motion, essentially, or we feel like we're spending hours in motion doing, but we're not gaining any traction. So it's kind of like, well, I'm a cyclist, so I liken it to riding your bike, but the chain has come off. You know, you can spin the pedals and the pedals still spin, but the bike doesn't actually go anywhere because there's no traction there with the chain. And because your brain is tired at the end of it, because thinking is tiring, we know that we get this mental overload. So because your brain is tired after it, you assume that you've actually done something useful, right? That you filled your time with useful things. But what you've really done is just wear yourself out on something that didn't move things forward, right? Didn't actually achieve what you set out to achieve. Now, from a neuroscience perspective or point of view, overthinking happens in the prefrontal cortex. So, this is the part of the brain that's responsible for decision making and analysis, very important part of the brain. And when we're overthinking, it doesn't actually know when to stop. Now, especially under pressure, the brain tends to over rely on this part. It tries to logic its way out of an uncertain situation because that's what our brain does best. It is wired to keep us safe, to keep us certain. So it tries to think its way out of uncertainty. But when you're in a state of chronic stress, which is often what happens when we get busy and we're thinking a lot, or when we're trying to do everything perfectly, then the brain goes into overdrive and it starts treating every decision like it's a high stakes moment. Again, that is what our brain was designed to do. So it's treating things like life and death. However, we all know that things like sending emails, replying to emails or a text message or just the tasks that we often put off for a couple of weeks, these are not life and death situations, but our brain treats them as though they are because we're not certain what the response or the outcome is going to be. And what this means is that your brain won't actually let go of it until it finds the perfect answer. Now, of course, we all know there is no such thing as perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. So the thinking keeps going because it doesn't realize that you've actually reached the outcome. Now, this shows up a lot in high performing people, high achievers, especially those who are used to getting things right or who take pride in being thoughtful and thorough. Now, I want to just say right here, there's nothing wrong with that. If you class yourself as someone who is high performing, high achieving, has high standards for themselves, fantastic. That is really important. We need more of you in the world, I think. So there's nothing wrong with that. But when your brain is always scanning for the best way to respond or to take action, then you can end up in what we call analysis paralysis. It's a bit of that inertia. You want to move forward, you're doing all of the thinking, you're analyzing the situation to get the best answer, but because you keep thinking, you're kind of stuck in that situation or in that position. And what is happening is the fear of doing it wrong becomes stronger than the desire to get it done, right? So we have a desire to get this thing done to achieve the outcome, or even if it's just to tick it off our list, but this fear of getting it wrong overrides that, right? And so what happens is that we hesitate, we delay things, we tweak, refine, second guess ourselves until quite often that task that would have just taken 15 minutes or perhaps should have taken 15 minutes has now taken a whole afternoon, and it's taken your mental energy with it because it's tiring. So, what do we do instead? Well, the point here isn't that we're saying just stop overthinking, all right? We realize that that is not entirely realistic, right? This is something that we all do at one point or another. But what you can do is notice when you've slipped into this pattern of overthinking or this habit of overthinking. That's what it is. It's a pattern. And what you can do is shift the question that your brain is trying to answer. Now, your brain is already really, really good at answering questions. What does your brain want to do? What is its natural instinct when it's asked a question? It's to answer it. All right. So most of the time, your mind is spinning around on questions like, what if I say the wrong thing? So your brain, or you ask, oh, what if I say the wrong thing? And your brain goes, oh, well, that person, they might judge you. They might think you're stupid. They might think that you can't do the job you've been hired for. Better not do it. Like, we better just keep thinking about this until we get it right. Okay, I think you're probably hearing yourself here. Your brain might say, what's the best way of doing this? And the answer is, well, I'm not 100% sure what the best way of doing this is. Let's do a little bit more research. Let's take a little bit more time to really think about this. Let's ask more people, right? Or even, what if I miss something? And the brain goes, oh, well, if you miss something, your job could be in jeopardy. You might get demoted. If you lose your job, that's going to impact your finances, and you can see the rabbit hole that can go down, right? So instead of those questions, try asking yourself this one question. What would this look like if it were easy? Right? What would this look like if it were easy? So that one question, what it's actually doing there is it's taking the pressure off, and it gives your brain a new question to answer, right? Gives it a new way forward, if you like. So what it's actually doing is it's short-circuiting that perfectionism loop that we get stuck in, and it lets you start building momentum instead of chasing that certainty, right? So it's just going, what would this look like if it were easy? Well, okay, if it were easy, then it would only take me 10 or 15 minutes to do. If it were easy, I just do the first part of it and get that out of the way. And of course, we all know, I hope, that motivation doesn't come before the doing. It actually comes from the action. And that's where we build momentum. We take one small thing, and that gives us momentum to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, right? That's the compounding effect, or the ripple effect, if you like. So what we're saying here is that 20 minutes of action is far more productive than 20 minutes of thinking. So if you are typically, or you find yourself typically as a person who likes to process things or needs to process things, and we're out there, and you find yourself thinking and thinking and thinking, analyzing situations, then my suggestion to you is, instead of doing that, put your time into actually doing it. Ask this different question and spend your 20 minutes doing rather than thinking. And you're going to find that you can catch this loop a lot easier and you won't be feeling overloaded and mentally drained simply from thinking anymore. Now, if you are one of these people who finds that your mind feels constantly full, like there's a lot going on in there and there's no off switch, then I have something for you. It's going to help you quieten things down. Call it what you will. Quiet the mental chatter, the mental noise, the internal voice. It's going to help you quiet that down. Understand the stress response here because this is a stress response, and it's going to help you actually reset. So it's called Reset and Recharge, and it's not a 30-day challenge. It's not a self-care checklist. It's a short, practical, brain-based online course. And it's designed to help high performers like you feel clearer, feel calmer, and to find focus. Right. So now when I say course, it's very short. I just didn't know what else to call it. So you can complete the whole thing in around an hour, right? You can do it all at once, or you can just do one module at a time. Very simple. It's usually $77, but I've added a coupon code in the notes here in the description so that you can get it completely free. Just all you need to do is click on the link and pop in the code. All right. So thank you for watching today. Remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. I'll see you next time.